gosh, it's been a while for me at least. Getting in here and doing this thing. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. My name is Elsie Escobar. I am the Director of Community and Content over here at Libsyn. And, we try to bring you all kinds of information here that a lot of folks don't necessarily get a chance to even think through. And, public relations, getting seen, publicity, getting people looking at your stuff outside of possibly even social media, getting eyes on your work is something that a lot of folks don't know even where to start. In fact, I had no idea how to do half of these things, and I've had some coverage here and there that has come my way, but I've never really been very like doing it. I'm going to do this thing because it's not the skill that I learned from at all. In fact, and when I started podcasting, why would I even want to do that? So anyway, oh my gosh, Andy, I am so excited to see you here, Patrick and Teresa. This is so great. You guys are my people. Thank you so much for showing up. Anyway, I just want you to know that we are going to be having an amazing experience here to get you all to be seen, to get you visible, to get your clarity, to get you to understand what you need to expect to move on to whatever level you need to do here in 2024 or in whatever year you decide to be looking at this stuff. So I have a very special guest with us today. I am here to welcome Tangia Renee Estrada. She's the co-founder of BIPOC Podcast Creators. She's a storyteller, a business builder, and PR consultant, which is why she's here. But she also has a background in community organizing, organizational leadership, and public policy. She is also the creator of the wellness podcast, The Wellness Confidential, and the USA Today recognized podcast, That's What She Did, a show that amplifies the voices of brilliant women. So, oh my God, I am so excited to have you here, Tangia. I've had the honor of being able to work with you here and there in little projects, and you're amazing. Really, truly.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here with all of you today and talk about PR, which I have an extensive background in, and I'm happy to share how it can help you all grow your platforms. It does feel complicated. It can be if you overcomplicate it. It is a skill set, but the good thing about that is that means anybody can do it. You just have to develop those skills and practice, practice, practice. Just like you had to develop a skill for podcasting, you can do it for this as well.
This is like, it's one of those questions where I think just to tell you a little bit of what I learned, and I had no idea how far ahead people is, you have to prepare for some of this stuff. I remember when I was doing my yoga podcast, and I was like, okay, January is one of those days, one of those, months where I can get coverage for my yoga podcast. And I immediately thought, once January hit, I'm just going to pitch myself to people to cover me. And I didn't realize that I'm too late. I know. Yeah. And that was just such a huge eye-opening. And that's just one of the small little bits of information that I learned as it pertains to being covered, that it's not just that these, reporters or newspapers or whatever are looking to cover somebody. It's not when it's happening. Like, there's thought.
It's not. Well, sometimes it is, right? So there's like something that's very timely that's happening in the news right now, and you got to strike right in that moment. But you still have to be ready, right? You had to have already thought through, like, what are your angles? What do you bring to this audience? There's strategy there. But generally, you're correct. They have an editorial calendar just like everybody else does. And so they know that in January, they're doing this, and they want those pitches 3 months ahead of time. Mm-hmm. But we'll get into that.
Yes. So excited. So anything else that you would want us to cover before we get started and really start to nail what we need to?
Yes. So I would say that what most people don't realize, there's a lot of pre-work you need to do to be ready to do specifically the media stuff, which is what you mentioned, right? The media relations. There's a lot of pre-work you have to put into place to do that. So what we're going to do today is I put together some quick slides just to sort of keep us organized. I'm going to try to get through the pre-stuff quickly because I would like to leave some time at the end for Q&A and maybe troubleshoot issues or like ask, question of something that you've run into recently that maybe I can help you brainstorm or troubleshoot your way through, because that's where you're probably wanting to figure out where the gap is. But we'll start with the first stuff and try to get through that as quickly as possible. So I talk fast. I would say put your comments and questions in the comment box. Elsie will manage that. Please know that when we're in presentation mode, I can't see what's happening over here in this group. So put your comments and questions there and we'll do our best to get back to you. But beyond that, let's go ahead and get started.
Perfect. Okay, so before, as Tangia starts to prep her stuff there, I just want to let you guys know, I forgot to mention this at the beginning, that if you do have a question, it makes it so much easier for our team, including me, to find your question if you start the question with a Q and a colon, just because we can search for it pretty quickly. I can star some of this stuff and then we can address those questions when we start to move into that. So just keep that in mind. And if you have anything else, if you have any other questions in there, our team is going to be able to handle them there for us. All right. So here we go. Here we go, Tangia. I see that you're ready. And we got the presentation getting started.
All right.
You are on.
Let's go. So let's talk about how to boost your podcast visibility and media presence. Take some time. A quick note about what I do. So my boutique PR agency is called Tangia Renee PR and Brand Discovery. We empower growing businesses, underrepresented leaders, and nonprofits to make a positive impact with audacious and thoughtful branding, PR, and marketing strategies. That basically means that we connect the dots between your business and your audience so that you can grow and stand out from the crowd. Just to make it a little shorter for you. All right, the first thing we need to talk about before we even get to media, before we get to the pitching part, before we get to like, I want to be on GMA, is brand clarity. Your brand is the most important piece of the puzzle. Every successful business, I don't care what kind of business it is built on the brand foundation. The brand is the North Star. It is how you move in the world. It is your whole entire identity. So I want to give you a couple of examples of brand identity in podcasting specifically that is very clear and some that is not so much and why that matters. So for our clear example, the Joe Rogan podcast. So you've all heard of Joe Rogan podcast. It's the podcast everybody loves to hate. Most people in the world have heard of Joe Rogan podcast. But when you look at this brand identity, when you just look at the visual piece of this brand, of this particular podcast, it says some things to you. It says this kind of kooky. It says that some crazy stuff might happen here. It says counterculture. It says, I wouldn't be surprised if a billionaire was on the show and was smoking a blunt in front of the whole world, right?
Right.
So Joe Rogan gets a lot of pushback for like having people on his show that are considered crackpots. But if you look at his brand, it looks like the kind of show that might hold space for crackpots. Everything that they do with this podcast is on brand. It's even the controversial stuff. I would say especially the controversial stuff. And that has led to a highly recognizable, well-known, very clear brand. Everything like just is lock in step, from the visual identity to the merch, to the content, to Joe Rogan himself, right? This is a personal brand. Just the way he moves in the world and where he appears and where he talks. It's all on brand. It all goes together and it is attracting a certain audience. And that's exactly what they want. So if you hate the Joe Rogan show, you're not the core audience that they're trying to attract. That's okay. He doesn't care. Trust me. Now let's put that up against this other podcast sibling rivalry with Kate Hudson and Oliver Hudson. I picked a celebrity podcast because celebrity podcasts are the easiest to hate. We're probably never going to meet these people, right?
Yeah, that's true.
But when you look at this, it has a vaguely 70s, 80s vibe. I'm not quite sure what it's supposed to be, but that's okay, right? Like black and white, I assume that this is them as children. I'm not sure what they mean by revelry, sibling revelry. It's just not like it's not the thing that sort of grabs you and goes, this is for me. And when it comes to podcast art, it doesn't have to be. Like you have a little bit of leeway there. But if I investigate this further, I can go to these people's social media and I'm just confused by what I'm seeing. There's almost no mention of this podcast, particularly on Kate Hudson's social media. She has somewhere around 17 million followers, if I recall correctly. He has around 1 million. Together, they have around 18 million followers. And it's just not clear. Like, what does this podcast have to do with their overall brand? So you have two people that are actors, and Kate at this point is probably mostly known as a businesswoman in the wellness space. She's a wellness influencer.
Yeah.
But if you look at what she's doing in the world, I think that she's actually trying to brand herself now as like a singer. I didn't even know she can sing. Yeah, it's very confusing, right? And so I look at this and like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, what is the next stage? What are you? Are you actors that are kind of trying to, what are you doing is my question. Yeah. I don't know. And so it's a little hard. So if they came to me and were like, we want to pitch this and we want to get on GMA, well, could they? Probably, because they're already celebrities, right? But if they weren't celebrities, I would have to have a talk with them about what is the purpose of this show and who is it for? Because even when you look at the content, it's basically celebrities talking to other celebrities who have a sibling. The content itself isn't about necessarily like getting two siblings on the show and having some kind of conversation about childhood or being a sibling. It's just you have to be famous and also have a sibling.
Oh my God.
It's just kind of weird.
Yeah, it kind of is.
I would be like, so what's the story here? What are we pitching? What's it about? Who's it for? Those are all of the questions that your brand is going to answer. It's going to make it very clear. When you do not have brand clarity, you don't know what you're doing in the world. You don't know how to move in the world. You're not sure about who your audience is. And if you are right now not completely sure about who your audience is, it's because you have to go back and you need to clarify your brand.
You know, we have Victor's group in there who said that he found this podcast because he was looking for podcasts with siblings, and his sister is his co-host, and he was looking for other siblings co-hosted podcasts. So that's why he found this one. So I'm curious, Victor's group, if like it actually addresses what you were looking for, right? Because according to what Tangia mentioned, there was a possibility that it might not. It's just people talking about,
I'm not sure. What my impression, and like from the 60 seconds that I gave it a listen, it's just another like celebrity stan culture thing. So like if you're somebody that just like likes to listen or watch celebrities, you might like this.
Yeah.
But that's sort of all it was. And that's a little bit difficult to build an engaged audience around. And I can tell that because if I go to that podcast, like on Apple Podcasts, and I look at their reviews and I look at how many reviews, they have like less than 10,000. For two people that have a combined nearly 20 million followers, that's a tiny percentage. It's not even 1%. Not even.
Yeah.
So that tells me that it's having difficulty finding an audience.
True.
Also, there isn't really any press about it for this celebrity. They should really get press. There's no conversation happening out in the world about it. It's just not finding an audience at this stage.
Yeah. I know. I didn't even know she had a podcast. So that's saying something. I had no idea. Okay. Right.
It says something, right?
That does say something.
She's a mega celebrity.
Yeah.
And most people don't know that she has a podcast. So,
Yeah.
okay, so let's talk about what is PR exactly and why does it even matter? PR is about those connections. It's the connections between your brand, your audience, your partners, your everybody else in the world. It's how you build the connection, so the actual activities you do, and it's how you create the credibility, trust, and garner the respect of your public. Not the public, your public. So your audience. It's how you build that. It's not marketing. Marketing is different. Marketing and PR have overlap, but they are not the same animal. Marketing is specifically about driving sales goals. So it's the activities of like running ads. It's your building your sales funnel. PR can get the right people into your sales funnel, but PR is not selling. PR is building relationships. So again, it's all about relationships and PR. So you got to get really comfortable with the networking and outreaching and not being so transactional, right? This is one way where people fall short in their PR efforts is they're very transactional. Like they will email somebody and be like, here's why I'm great. And this is what I want from you. Please let me know how we're going to work together. That email's going directly in the garbage. I promise. I promise. What you need to understand is that once you have clarified your brand, you are going to start putting together your PR efforts, your plan. What is it going to be? Because this is how you're going to, again, build the visibility, the credibility, and the respect between your audience, with your media, with your partners. It's building the relationship. So you are always, when it comes to PR, you are always cultivating relationships and maintaining relationships. And it's this circular, symbiotic relationship between your brand and your PR efforts. You are always cultivating, always maintaining. And you have to come up with a process for you to be able to do that. Different types of PR, because this question just always comes up. So there's strategic communications. All of your PR should be based in strategy around what is best for your brand. There's media relations, which is what most people are talking about when they think of PR. So that's getting into the news somewhere, getting media placements. Community relations, internal communications, crisis communications, public affairs, online and social media communications. It's all of your comms, and your comms are going to play out in many different forms. These are just sort of the general buckets.
Right.
And all of them have like different activities that you might want to think of. Like public affairs and community relations can have a lot of overlap. That's like lobbying. It's government, it's campaigning. That's where I learned PR is I used to run campaigns. And so I learned everything there was to know about working with the media because I was the media contact. Media training, all of this stuff. So they can all work together. You're not going to do all of these things. This is just the different types in larger buckets. All right, so let's sort of talk through some of the strategies because this is what you really want to know, right?
Right.
And how am I doing on time? Am I going too fast? Am I going too slow?
You're doing good because I'm sure we'll have questions and folks just want to know this. What you're talking about right now is what they want to know.
This is the part, right?
Yes, this is the part.
What does PR, what can PR strategies look like for podcasters? Honestly, the world is your oyster. I would say be creative, but let's back up. So how do you start? Start local. So you're a small business, you're a small brand, likely you might be just starting to build your brand. That's okay, but you need to start local. You're not a major brand. A GMA doesn't want to talk to you. Not yet anyway. Not unless something really like wild and very timely happened and you happen to be the perfect fit to talk about that particular topic. But if you don't have press and you don't have a really good looking website and you don't have someone like a PR publicist pitching you, you're probably not going to get placed on GMA just by accident. It does happen. There are always anomalies. Risa Tisa comes to mind for anybody that in a chokehold like I was for an entire weekend with that saga.
Me too.
Right? Yes. So that's a notable anomaly, right?
Yes.
That doesn't usually happen. Great for her. She did end up on a couple of different
I
shows. I
think,
can't
yeah, it
remember.
was, wasn't it? I think it was GMA. And I just saw that interview. It was astounding. Yeah, totally.
Yes. Might have, but that almost never happens. So don't bank on that. For the rest of us, we have to start and build. So you're going to start local. So I'm based out of Denver. If I were starting a podcast right now, I would look around in my local network, the people that I know now, the local media, and say, what do I have to offer in my niche that is going to be interesting and newsworthy to the audience of the partner, the media outlet, or the local business? That's what you have to think of. It's never about you. It's about what do you have to offer for their audience.
I want you to say that again. I want you to say that again, Tangia, because I think that they have to know this. This is key.
It is never, ever about you. No one cares that you have a podcast. No one cares that you have a business. They only care about what you can offer them. That's it. So that's what you need to talk about. And you need to come to the table with an idea formed. It doesn't have to be super detailed, but you have to come to you have to be the one that is directing in the beginning. In order to garner any interest, you have to have an actual idea. You have to have an actual story. Because if you don't, here's what's going to happen. You're going to send an email and you're going to like pitch something. You're going to be like, hi, I think that you're really great. And I love your show, your talk show. I love your podcast, whatever the thing is. And I've been following you for blah, 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 blah. And I have a podcast about blah, blah, blah. And I would really love to work with you. Thanks. You have told them nothing. It is not the other person's job to figure out how to work with you. That's your job. And that's what you're pitching. You're not pitching your podcast. You're pitching the idea of how you're going to collaborate and bring something of value to their audience, something that they want, something that's timely, something that matters, something that's interesting. Got that? Start local.
Yep.
Okay. Build around your niche, not your podcast. So what that means is, again, it's all about the audience. It's not about your podcast. There's 3 million podcasts in the world. Your podcast is probably not even about a unique topic. That's okay. You're bringing something unique to the table around that topic, but the niche, the people who are interested in that niche, those are the people that you're trying to get. So for instance, let's take Kate Hudson. Kate Hudson is well known in the wellness space because she owns Fabletics, a very large, well-known athleisure brand, right? So that's part of her brand. And had she started a podcast in the wellness space, that would have made a lot of sense to me, right? She's already in the wellness space. So the niche is wellness. But you got to go deeper than that. What about wellness are you talking about? Well, maybe the podcast is healing from trauma, from childhood trauma through naturopath wellness strategies and fitness. Let's just say, right? Mm-hmm. You're building your brand in that niche. You got to get those people. And then if your brand is clear enough and you've done it well, you will attract a subset of those people to your podcast. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. What happens most of the time is people lead with the podcast. I have a podcast about wellness and da-da-da-da-da. And people are like, okay, well, there's like 50,000 podcasts about wellness. Why should I care about this one? And it's because you in that niche have something unique to offer. Every brand, every business is solving a problem or providing a service to their niche. Every one of them, even your podcast. And that's what they're going to be attracted to. So you're going to say, all these wellness people over here. Oh, well, I'm specifically interested in these people that are healing from childhood trauma. And here's my solution for them to help them through that. What are you solving for? It could be entertainment, right? You could just be doing entertainment, and the problem you are solving or the service you are providing to your audience is fun. It's happiness, it's joy, it's entertainment. It could be education. In fact, it's probably one of those two things. Entertainment, education, could be something else. But you have to have that because it's going to serve this niche of people. And based on that and the clarity of your brand, you're going to attract the right people. So build around the niche, not specifically your podcast. Network and partnerships are everything. Yes, you need to attend networking events. I'm sorry. You do.
Especially in your niche, right? Especially in your niche, especially if it's, yep, totally.
Right? If you are a wellness podcast and you are trying to attract women who are struggling with and trying to heal from childhood trauma through fitness and I don't know what else, something else, then you should probably go to places where you are going to find those women. It could be online, it could be in person, whatever the thing is. But my uncle has this saying that he loves to say, and I think it's fairly famous. He's a very experienced and successful investment banker. And he loves to say, your network determines your net worth. Because truly, the more people you know, the more opportunities you are going to have for people to know what you're doing. Partnerships are everything. You cannot build partnerships if you are not building your network. You cannot do it all alone. So you have to go out and you have to develop these partnerships. They're going to help you access their networks, their audience. That's going to bring more people into your audience and you're going to grow that way. These are things that you should be doing whether or not you want to pitch media.
Yep.
I know many, many businesses, many, many podcasters that are successful in their niche with what they're doing and they don't care about media at all. They do spend zero money on marketing. And it's because their network is so good. And they get referred and referred and referred and referred and referred.
Yep. I think that that's key there also because that's something that folks don't understand around the public relationship, public, reach that's where the relations part of it all comes in, right? That everybody thinks that it's really just about media. And a lot of this stuff is exactly what you're saying. Like to me, it's astounding how far I got, when I started in terms of podcasting, because I had so many solid relationships when I was teaching yoga that I was top of mind in so many different situations when anybody needed it. And from the beginning, I got local TV coverage because of my yoga podcast. The TV news, I think it was Channel 7 or something, when I was in Los Angeles, came in and shot my yoga class while I was recording it because it was, I don't know, they did a story and I came up just during that time. And I was astounded that came up for me, but I had also been having relationships with like fashion brands. I had collaborated so much with some of the fashion yoga brands that were local to Los Angeles. So I was getting coverage there. I got coverage with some of the yoga mat companies where they got me coverage there. I had an entire campaign come my way where they had these posters with me on them. And at the bottom, it just said like Elsie from Elsie's yoga class, and I was just like, wow. And that all literally came from relationships, just from relationships. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's the way that it is. PR is a relationships game. And I'm always like, I get that it's hard and I get that it's time consuming. And if you're an introvert, I'm an introvert. Like I kind of have to psych myself up, right, to get ready to go into a networking thing and be on. But that's where the money is, right? That's where it's at. The very first media hits that I got just independently podcasting came because I already knew people in the media. And when I was like, hey, I started this podcast, and they were ready to do a listicle of like the top podcasts that women should listen to, mine was on there. And it got multiple hits. I was in USA Today, I was in O Magazine, I was in Bustle, from one person that I knew, that I worked with in media back when I was doing campaigns in 2013. It's the gift that keeps on giving, y'all. If you have good relationships, those gifts just keep on giving. And that's why you always need to be cultivating and you always need to be maintaining. So just like a word to the wise, you should be having quarterly meetings with your contacts, with your relationship. You have to be intentional about it. You should be reaching out to them and saying, hey, love to talk to you. Hey, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, just want to catch up. See what are you working on? See if there's, anything that we can collaborate on. And that's how, you got to not be transactional. You can't expect to go to them when you want something and have that be okay. You have to maintain that relationship. Every quarter, you should be having meetings. You should have a list of people. This is who I'm meeting with. This, or at least I'm attempting to meet with.
Yep.
Before you even get to the media piece. Because cultivating media takes long. It does. Especially if you don't have contacts already. Let me tell you, it is going to take a minimum of 6 months consistent action of pitching and cultivating relationships with media contacts before you start to see any ROI at all. It's going to be like crickets, probably for 6 months. Oftentimes for longer, especially now because there's been so many layoffs in media. Almost nobody has staff writers anymore. There was a time in the early 2000s when all these publications had staff writers and you knew who to contact and it was just easier to find. And now everybody is freelance because everybody's getting laid off. And so you will have one journalist or one writer that writes for 10, 15 different publications. So imagine how many deadlines they have a week. That means that the pitch has to land and you have to do a lot of follow-up. Otherwise, they're getting hundreds of emails a day. They're not paying attention to you. Who are you?
Yeah.
So think about that. You have to get very good at pitching. So remember, beyond networking, the only way, if you don't have somebody in your network that can introduce you, the only way that you're going to start to build a relationship with somebody who you have no access to is by emailing them. Because journalists don't take pictures over social media. They don't. Please don't do that. You're just going to piss them off.
I have to say, though, Tangia, I gotta say that there are some of the new, Gen Z type folks. Because I do know, what is her name? Taylor. Oh my God. She just launched a podcast, actually. And she is really targeting the younger generation. And she does ask for specific feedback and or for you to pitch if you have an issue. Like something came up with, I forgot what it was, and I just told one of my contacts that I had, I'm like, oh my God, you would be perfect for this, because she was covering a very specific, timely tech related thing. And she's a tech person. And she asked, reach out to me if you have a story about this. And,
that happens sometimes. That's rare though, right?
Yes.
That's rare. And it's very specific to the audience that she's trying to reach.
Absolutely. Yep.
So if you're not, if you don't fall specifically within the ask, don't ever do that. And I can almost guarantee you any other time she's not accepting pitches from social media.
Yes. And I agree. I totally agree. And I think that that's something for us to think through. And to your point, Tangia, when they're crafting something that is long, like eye on the prize versus I need to talk to somebody about this for tomorrow.
Right.
Right.
There's a lot of lead time. So if somebody is sourcing for a story now, that story, again, unless it's something that's happening in the news immediately, it's probably not, it's going to be weeks and weeks before that story ever comes out, right? That's that
Absolutely.
planning that you have to think about. I will say one exception that I have used fairly successfully over the years when it comes to social media is if you have cultivated a relationship with somebody over social media, I wouldn't ever do this cold, but if you've cultivated somewhat of a relationship with them, then I think it's okay to go back to social media and DM them and say, hey, is it okay if I send you a pitch on da da da? I saw that you were doing this and I would love to send you a pitch. Can I send you a pitch if you don't have their contact information?
Yeah.
And that's a good way to connect the dots for them. And if they say, oh, yeah, send me a pitch here, then you send them a pitch there and you remind them, hey, I'm the one that DM'd you last week or yesterday. Hopefully you're doing it within 24 hours, right? I'm the one that DM'd you yesterday about blah, 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 and then you give them a really good pitch. That's one tactic that I've used fairly successfully over the years. So let's talk a little bit more about media specifically. So we're talking about earned media. Like you literally have to earn it. You are not paying for it. That's advertising. There's lots of things out there that look like earned media and are not. So one thing that comes to mind is like the who's who lists. That's not earned media, that's paid media. There's nothing wrong with paid media. You just need to understand that there's a difference. Paid media is an ad. Mm-hmm. You paid for it. It's not like an authentic, this is timely, it goes along with this topic, we are reporting on this topic and we think that this is the person that we want to quote or this is the business that we want to highlight. They're just different things, so understand. There are a lot of agencies out there that really push paid things. It'll be like an article feature of some kind, but you have to pay for it. If you want to do that and you have the budget for it, that's fine, do it. But it's not earned media. Earned media is when a journalist, a writer, blogger of some kind is representing this publication, this media outlet, and they have picked you up as a resource for that. And they're holding you up, presenting you to their audience as a source of some kind. That's why earned media is so valuable, because it's that credibility that you were just not going to get anywhere else. You're just not. And it introduces you to a huge audience that you would not be able to access any other time.
Yeah.
So understand those differences. And again, understand that it's going to take time, whether you're doing it yourself or if you're working with a professional like me. You know, if I'm the pro that's handling your podcast or your business, I have a lot of media contacts, but I may not have them specifically in your niche. Now, I can probably develop them a hell of a lot quicker than you can, right? Because I have resources to do that. But it's still going to take time, and it still has to be timely, right? We still have to think about the editorial calendars of these writers, what's happening in the news. It's not, it's very common for you to be picked up as a source and, to do the whole thing. And then they're like, okay, this is going to post on date. And then something happens in the world that gets all the attention. And then your story gets killed. Sorry. Like that's the world. Like if a war pops off or a train derails or whatever, a celebrity does something wild, that's going to get the attention and your story is going to get killed if it was going to run on that day. Or it's going to be kicked to another area that nobody is really paying attention to. It might still run, but it's not going to get the attention it might have happened. So those are some things that you need to think about. You have to have the patience for PR to come to fruition. Your PR activities are the long game. An ad is the short game. An ad is thinking about how do we convert people into sales right now? That's marketing. PR is always a long game. There is going to be a cultivation period. that you have to just get out there and build these relationships and pitch and pitch and pitch and pitch, and then things start to come together. It's going to take 6 months to a year if you're being consistent and you've clarified your brand. And I can't talk about brand clarity enough, because if you don't have the brand clarity, you don't know who you're talking to, you don't know what your audience is, you're unclear of what the service is, the solution, the value is that you provide to that specific audience, it's really hard to place you anywhere. It's going to be really hard to get any media attention, because they're going to look at what I look at as a pro. When someone comes to me, I go look at, I research that business. I go look at their website. I look at their socials. I look at how they operate in the world. Any media is going to do that. That's what their producer's job is. That's what their journalist's job is, to make sure. They have to do their due diligence. And if we can't catch it the second we land on your site, the second we land on your socials, it's like, I don't know what these people are doing. Next. Mm-hmm. So keep that in mind. All right, you need to build a PR plan. Keep in mind, media does not have to be part of your PR plan. It doesn't. Like I said, I know many, many businesses and podcasts that do great with no media attention and no marketing. It's because they are so solid on the PR piece. So here's some basic things that you need to do. Again, clarify your brand. Your brand is your North Star. It is what dictates your goals. It's what tells you how to move. It's how you sound. It's who you're talking to and how you talk to them. That's all in your brand clarity. Nail that piece. Right? A good plan is based in your business goals. It is. You got to have some idea where you're going. Lots of people pitch, and we see this all the time with BIPOC podcast creators. One thing that we do is we will do features of folks, podcasters in our community, and we get pitched all of the time for features, and the majority of the time, we can't do anything with that pitch. Because I don't understand what this person is trying to do. Like, what is their goal? How is this feature part of you can tell when it's a thought out pitch, and you can understand this person is trying to do this. That aligns with what we're doing here at BIPOC Podcast Creators. Mm-hmm. So this would probably be a good partnership or a good feature for us. We get pitched all the time for partnerships. Oh, we would love to work with you for and we're like, I just don't have any idea what you're trying to achieve here. And I'm not going to take the time to figure it out because it's not my job. Right. So those just go, they just get deleted. We just disappear them.
Yep. No, it's the most challenging thing, Tangia. Like, you are correct. We get pitched a lot over here at Libsyn as well. And I think that there are some things where I just sit down and I go, did you even consider looking at the things that we're currently doing and how you would fit into what we are currently doing? Mm-hmm. Do we ever do what you're asking us to do? And thirdly, I don't know anything about you, and I'm a busy I have things to do. I cannot go and do research on you right now. I can't sit there because what you're offering me is down here. If it was somebody that, there was a lot of money involved or a lot of visibility, or there was something that I was like, what are they saying they have? I would step into that a little bit sooner, but I need to know. You have to make it easier for me. And that does not mean for you to send me. I just had somebody send me an email, Tangia, that was, I don't know, 1,500 words.
Oh, no.
And I immediately, I just swiped, didn't even read it, because I'm like, this is too many words, and I don't even know who this is. So,
yes.
It was bye.
All of that, right? So if you don't have very clear goals for yourself, you're going to have a real hard time with pitching. And that's media or partnerships. Anybody you want to collaborate with, you're just, it's not going to land, because your email is going to be like this. I don't know what you're talking about, and I don't have time to figure it out. Yes. Goodbye. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So think about that stuff. Do the work of your brand and your goals first. Please. It's going to help you in the long run. Next, I've already said this, play the long game. You're looking at a minimum of 6 months, probably closer to 12, especially if you're DIYing it. That's okay. Work within your budget. But that's what it requires, consistent action. That means consistent action means that, especially when we're talking about media, you are pitching, you are doing solid pitches. You have done the research, right? You have looked at the publication, you have looked at the business or whoever you want to collaborate with, and you have found an angle that matches what they are doing. Like, you have to make some guesses about what their goals are and who they're trying to reach, but it matches that and it provides some kind of value. So you're going to get good at that. And you got to have a subject line that's catchy, that makes somebody want to open it. And it's not going to be long. It's going to be like...
it's going to be quick. It's like, wow, okay, I want more, for sure.
Exactly, right? Yep. You have to do the work. That takes practice. It is a skill set. So your first pitches are going to be terrible. You're probably not going to hear back. But one thing you could do if you don't have the budget to bring in somebody to help you with this is get with your friends and colleagues and say, this is what I'm trying to do. Here's who I want to pitch. What do you think of this pitch? Your friends and colleagues they will often be able to be like, dude, that's way too long. Or like, this subject line, this doesn't work at all. You can help each other, right?
Yeah.
Get more brains around it. Do that. Consider bringing in a professional. I just realized I spelled professional wrong. Apologies, everyone.
Dude, listen, typos happen.
My mistake. After you have DIY'd it as far as you can, right? Do it yourself until you can't, or you've gotten lost and you just don't know where to go. Do as much as you can, because bringing in a pro is not cheap, right? Especially not a good one. Not somebody with experience like I have. It's not going to be cheap. Why? Because I know what I'm doing. And I have the track record to prove it. So do what you can for yourself in the beginning until you just can't. When you've gotten to a place where you're like, I can't go any further at this point because I really don't have the skills, that's when you need to start thinking about bringing in a professional. Or you just simply don't have the time, right? Maybe you can do a little more and you are just so spread thin that you absolutely can't. Think about so some planning, right? And then you need to find a pro that can work with you where you are. So just what to expect if you're thinking about going out and finding a pro or agency to work with is like, most agencies, especially your bigger ones, are most of us work on a retainer. And so they're going to want to sign you to a retainer. And if you have the budget for that, great. But make sure it's very clear what you're trying to achieve and that they're going to take the time to really understand your brand. Because a large agency probably isn't going to do that. They're going to sign you to a retainer for around $8,000. And then they're going to be like, send me your logo and blah, blah, blah. And then they're just going to like assign a junior PR assistant to you, and then good luck. And that person is just going to try to get media placements. But they're probably not going to sit with you and do the work of really analyzing your brand and saying, here's what needs to change, right?
Yeah.
So if you're a smaller business, what I find, and the reason why in my agency we do branding along with PR, in fact, we do brand before PR, we do a full brand audit, is because I need to understand your brand very clearly so I know exactly how we are going to position you and move you forward towards your goals. So just make sure if you're ready to do that, you're ready to hire, find somebody that is willing to take that time with you, because as a smaller business, and I assume that most people here are a small business, a small platform that you're trying to grow, you don't have the budget to waste. So you need whatever comes out of that effort to hit for you. So just think about that.
Right on. We are just a quick set.
Okay.
We are at 2:50 right now. We have about 10 minutes. So let us know, folks. We have some questions that are in there too, Tangia, if you want to.
Okay, great.
It's up to you.
Just some things to think about. This is the last slide anyway. Before you hire, you should have your vision and goals somewhat sketched out. You need to have an idea. Even like I can't invent that stuff for you. It has to come from you. I can build a whole brand around your vision and goals, but you have to have it, right? Next, make sure you're ready to grow. We sort of touched on this in the beginning. You might not be ready. You might be like, yeah, I want media, but I'm right here and I'm comfortable right here. That's fine. That's fine. But that's going to be a different PR strategy for you. Maybe you only are focusing on media, right? Maybe you're only focusing on one thing and not trying to do like this whole thing. Just, you got to be ready for it, which means you also have to have a budget to invest, right? That means that you're ready. You've done the pre-work. Generally, for me, I generally don't work with any business that hasn't been in business for at least 2 years, because you need that time to understand your market, who's your target market. Everybody starts a business in the beginning, and even though we might know that industry, we don't know what we're doing. You don't know how you are uniquely different, how you are uniquely doing it in that marketplace. So you have to have done some of that before you're ready for like a PR pro to hire. You have the budget, you're ready to grow, you have a story worth telling. What's interesting? Come to the table saying, I think I want to tell this story, or I think this is the story that's really interesting about what we do and how we do it here. And lastly, have patience, because it takes time. As
yes, it does. Oh my God. All right. Well,
okay.
Folks,
let's do questions.
We're going to do some questions here. I have some of these here. And I'm going to see if I can get one that is. Oh, here. Well, here's an interesting one. How can you give me some examples of how to flip from my podcast to here's how I can help in an outreach email kind of a thing that you were saying, instead of, the emails that we get. Hey, I just launched my podcast. I think I'd be great on your show.
Yeah, so you had to have done you had to have mapped out for yourself already what is the value that you're bringing to the table, right? So maybe your podcast is uniquely designed to teach first-year teachers how to get hired in school districts and be successful teachers. That's going to be really interesting niche to some publication out there. I don't know what it is. I haven't done that research, right? So instead of pitching your podcast, what you're going to do first is you're going to follow that publication. You're going to find out who the writers are. You're going to follow them, and you're going to start paying attention to what they write. You're going to learn about when they write, what they write about, what their voice is, what are the angles that they tend to write? Like, do they tend to do like success stories? Do they tend to talk about policy issues in education that are affecting your first year teachers? Those are all things that you need to know. And then when you have a story idea, you write to that person and say, hey, I've been following you. Hopefully you've been interacting with them, commenting on the stories that they've written. Whatever the case may be, and say, hey, I've been following you. I really enjoyed this article about XYZ. It made me think of blah, 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 blah. I think I have this opportunity where we can work together. I have a podcast about this exact issue. I can come and talk about these 3 things from this angle that is going to be really important for helping your first year teacher readers learn X, Y, and Z. Does that help?
That was really clear, folks. I mean, you just have to do that work of being able to reframe that versus just, hey, I have a new thing. These, I think, can be fairly quickly for you to answer. One of them, Eric asked, will we have access to the slides after this live stream? So Tangia, ball's in your court.
Or you can have them. You want me to send them to you, or?
Yes, we can. We'll figure out what we do. We'll figure it out, team, right? Okay. Yes. Okay.
Sure.
And the second one is Andy asks, how do you feel about HARO?
Yeah, I mean, HARO still works. I mean, I feel like it's not user friendly is how I feel about it, but it still works.
This is true.
Use it.
Oh,
But
but by the way, sorry to stop, but HARO is Help a Reporter Out. That is
yes,
a website, and you subscribe. You kind of like open up an account or whatever, and then they send you daily emails or even more if you want, I think. And you
yeah.
pick like where you want them, and it's, reporters looking for stories, sources, things like that.
But you still have to have a good pitch because you
Yeah.
have to pitch them. They're basically saying, I'm writing a story about XYZ, pitch me.
Yes.
So it's got to be a good pitch. I've gotten media placements through HARO.
Yeah. That's good. Okay, and then we have another question here. This is from Teresa. What if an agency comes to you to pitch your podcast? Their clients, should they pay to be on your podcast? Is that a thing? They always say they don't have a budget, but I want the relationship.
So an agency is pitching someone to be on your podcast and you want to know if
Oh
they
yeah.
should pay. If you have
Mm.
a policy where guests have to pay, I guess I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, if the guest is the right guest for you, then you should have the guests if you feel like they're a good placement for your show. I know that there's a small group of podcasts out there that are charging people to be on their podcast. If somebody wants to pay for it, okay. I don't know why they would, honestly, because being a guest on any podcast, I don't care if it's a celebrity podcast or not, it doesn't guarantee any type of conversion. It's a weird thing to me. I think if you were being pitched, then you keep those publicist information so that you can go back and pitch them if they're working for a publication specifically, right? Go back and you can pitch them and you can develop a relationship with them, but they're probably not going to pay. That's very unusual.
Yeah, it is. That's an iffy kind of conversation. I'm still thinking through a lot of that stuff for
Mhm.
myself, because yeah, there's just like a lot of new things that are coming out in terms of the podcasting space, and I know that there's a lot of resources and professionals who are doing this for a living, meaning they're pitching you to go into
Right.
podcasts. I have to say that as of late, I would say 99.99% of pitches that I get from a source, from a company, from anything like that, are really bad
Yeah,
because
they are.
there's so many things that they're missing the point on, like I get a lot of pitches for our podcast for the feed, and one of
Mhm.
the key things that really irks me is when they email and only mention my co-host and they don't mention me, and it's absolutely irritating because I'm the one that does the email. And you would know this if you listened to the podcast.
Right.
That's even just not even talking about the appropriate nature of the fact that we don't even have an interview show, which is usually a pitch about how amazing these people will be on our show. But just that, the fact that they're emailing the wrong person and they completely dismiss me as a co host, I think that
Mhm.
that's not so great.
It's a
And
really common problem with especially large agencies that are, doing the pitching on behalf is they will often have so many clients that they're not doing the research. And
yeah.
so again, those pitches just end up, even though they're coming from a pro, they just end up in the delete folder. And for you all, if you're doing your own pitching, that's a reminder that you absolutely need to do the research. And if you're trying to get on a podcast or be on a show of some kind or get in a publication, you need to go and read their work. You need to be familiar with it. It surprises me how many people don't do that and they think that they can just send a pitch and magically they're going to be in Entrepreneur Magazine. You're not. You're
Yep.
not. And these journalists have been writing for a long time. They are professionals. They know when they are getting somebody who hasn't done the work. They know. So stop trying to fake it.
Stop trying to fake it. All right, guys, I'm going to do a last call out here as we're closing out.